The first Christmas morning arrived with pale winter sunlight spilling through the café windows, and Officer Marianne Holt sat alone at a corner table, her untouched breakfast growing cold as the world celebrated without her. For the 7th year in a row, she wore her uniform like armor, convincing herself that duty was enough to fill the quiet ache she carried every December. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment. If you believe kindness can rewrite even the loneliest destinies, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Grandma Dearie. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Marianne had learned to love the silence because it hurt less than expecting something more. Her mornings usually began before sunrise, patrolling calm streets dusted with frost, watching families through bright windows as they gathered around breakfast tables. By the time the city fully woke, she slipped into this small café, the only place open early on Christmas Day. The decorations were cheerful but modest, green garlands framing the windows, warm lights glowing gently rather than glittering loudly. It was daytime, but the holiday felt paused, as if the world was holding its breath. She chose the same seat every year, close enough to the window to watch life move on, far enough to remain unnoticed. Her past had taught her not to hope for surprises. Losing her parents young and later choosing a career that demanded emotional walls had shaped her into someone dependable, brave, and quietly alone. Christmas was never about gifts for her. It was about surviving another reminder that she had no one waiting at home. Across the café, the waitress Elena Brooks moved with practiced grace, refilling cups and straightening chairs. She was in her early 30s, with tired eyes softened by patience and a kindness that seemed stitched into her movements. Elena had taken this shift not because she wanted 2/4 extra money, but because home felt just as empty. Her life had been a long stretch of near misses and hard lessons, raising her daughter on tips and hope. Still, she smiled easily, especially when her little girl was near. That morning, her daughter Sophie, only 8 years old, stood by the door clutching a small, carefully wrapped box. She wore a bright red coat that made her look like a spark of warmth against the winter gray. Sophie had insisted on coming, even though Elena worried the café might feel dull for a child on Christmas Day. But Sophie believed something important was about to happen, even if she didn't quite know what. Marianne noticed them without meaning to. The contrast was striking. A mother balancing exhaustion with love, and a child radiating quiet determination. Something about Sophie's presence stirred a memory in Marianne, a faint echo of mornings when Christmas felt like possibility instead of obligation. She quickly looked down, embarrassed by the sudden tightness in her chest. The café remained calm, bathed in daylight that softened every corner. Plates clinked, coffee steamed, and the outside world continued its slow holiday rhythm. Elena watched Marianne from behind the counter, sensing the familiar shape of loneliness. Working in a café taught you to read people, to notice who lingered and who avoided eye contact. Marianne carried herself with strength, but the stillness around her felt heavy. Elena hesitated for a long time. She had learned not to intrude on strangers, especially those who looked like they preferred distance. But Sophie tugged gently at her sleeve, eyes fixed on the officer. Children noticed what adults tried to ignore. Finally, during a quiet lull, Elena let Sophie lead the way. The little girl walked carefully toward Marianne's table, the wrapped box held with both hands as if it were fragile hope itself. Marianne looked up, surprised, unsure why her heart began to race. Sophie stopped a few steps away, sunlight catching in her hair. She didn't speak, but she extended the gift, her face open and earnest. Behind her, Elena hovered near the door, ready to pull her daughter back if she had crossed a line. The moment stretched, filled with uncertainty. Marianne slowly set down her fork. No one had given her anything on Christmas in years. She reached out almost unconsciously, taking the small box. Inside was nothing expensive, just a simple ornament handmade from paper and ribbon, with a clumsy but heartfelt design. It was imperfect, fragile, and unmistakably human. Something in Marianne cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to let warmth seep through. The cafe no longer felt like a place she passed through, but somewhere she belonged, even if only for this morning. Elena stepped closer then, offering a quiet smile that carried more understanding than words ever could. Time moved gently after that. Elena poured Marianne a fresh cup of coffee, on the house, and Sophie sat nearby, content just to be present. The sunlight grew brighter, turning the cafe into a pocket of warmth against the cold outside. Marianne found herself staying longer than usual, the weight she carried easing just enough to breathe more freely. For the first time, Christmas didn't feel like something she had to endure. It felt like something that had found her, unexpectedly and without conditions. She realized that family didn't always come from shared blood or long histories. Sometimes, it arrived in the form of a knock you never expected, carried by people brave enough to care. As the morning wore on, customers came and went, but the feeling remained. Marianne eventually stood to leave, holding the small ornament carefully, as if it were something precious. She glanced back once, meeting Elena's eyes, and in that shared look was an unspoken understanding that this moment mattered. Before this story ends, if it touched your heart even a little, please like the video, leave